Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekah HaKwadash, and double honor to the elder apostles of the great millstone that have taught us this truth through the Holy Spirit. And if I didn't mention to include the elder bishops on down, and overall to you, Akim Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Brakathum, to all of y'all that further this ministry as we believe that we are the hopeful elect. And once again, it's your brother Laban. And what I want to do is I want to get into this topic of discussion concerning these truckers complaining about the living expenses. And what we're going to do is I'm not going to speak any more further. I'm going to play this video and then we're going to get into it.
Message to the president. The industry for truckers is dying. It is getting sucked dry by these soulless corporations and lobbyists, and it's got to change. There has got to be a change. There got to be a minimum freight cost of $4 a mile. There has got to be a minimum driver wage of $1 a mile. Because all these companies, you can't haul freight for $2.38 a mile when it costs $2.25 to maintain the equipment and get the stuff moved. That leaves nothing for the drivers and the people at the office and the people involved. That's nothing. Brokers should be capped at 3 to 5%. You know, the people that make this stuff work are the truck drivers and the carriers. And they need to take home the biggest piece of the pie. You know, this is ridiculous. And it's caused safety issues across the board. Everybody's got to cut corners, they got to go above and beyond what they can do safely just to try and make it to get ahead and still not get ahead. These companies are having to borrow and go into debt, hoping to God for a miracle. And we need a miracle. We need a government.
Yeah, so it looks to me, and I'm going to just guess it right. It seems as though he seems to be one of those truck owning businessmen. And this is his complaints. So, I mean, if the truckers are not able to truck properly because of the expenses, then, I mean, once again, you got problems here. All right. And it's really to do with one of the reasons as to why it's to do with these tariffs, which DJ Trump has been posing at certain countries, which they need to rely on anyway. And so now, because of these tariffs that has been posed against these nations, now these American business people have to pay an extra tax on that. So let's get into it. How the freight recession and tariffs are hitting the trucking industries and what's come next. And I want to get to the point over here. The freight recession, a longer downturn than expected. The freight industry has been experiencing a sustained downturn since mid-2022, in part due to the supply chain crises experienced during the COVID era. While the market isn't continuing to decline, it's also not rebounding as quickly as hoped. We're not in a recessionary territory in the traditional sense because we're not on the downswing, says Burr, but we haven't seen the strong upswing or return in seasonality that people were expecting. This prolonged stagnation has created a new kind of freight recession, not defined by its severity, but by its duration, while many carriers were cautiously optimistic that 25 would mark the beginning of a turnaround. Recently imposed tariffs have undercut that hope, pushing a fragile industry further into uncertainty. And that's what's problematic. So if a lot of these trucking companies are feeling uncertain, then again, how is your goods going to get into these stores the way that they should? And so what that's also going to cause is more inflation to happen, because now things are going to be higher in demand. Because now you have these truckers that can't really afford to freight this stuff for whatever their reasons are. And so what I want to also do as well is I want to tie this in with what was going on in ancient Rome, because the same things was going on in ancient Rome as well. And there was an article that I had on deck. This was in it. This was it over here. But let me read this precept first. This is Ecclesiastes. Is it Ecclesiastes? Yes, Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing that have been, I'm getting it mixed up with Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. So now let's compare it to ancient Rome, because this is Rome all over again, as well as we all should know, right? Empires are reincarnated, and the same similar things are reincarnated with it. So what I want to do is I want to read this over here. How did the Roman Empire fall? And I mean, there's so many issues which led to the ancient Roman Empire, but just to read about a few things in relation to what I'm talking about, let's read this. Rome was known as the eternal city. However, the city's position as the center of a global empire was anything but eternal. And that's what America thinks. That's what the Western world thinks. They think that they're eternal. But what the world is now finding out is that that's not the case either as well. There were three major causes for the fall of the empire: internal corruption, which is what we have right now, and the division of the empire, and successive invasion by Germanic tribes. And I'm going to go back to this division of the empire. I'm going to get back to this part. So let's read about this. Internal corruption and the fall of Rome. Corruption was a major problem in Rome towards the end of the empire. Corruption and bad government lead to inflation, the same stuff that we're experiencing right now, starvation, which is in certain countries around the way, disease, and excessive taxation. Again, the tariffs, which is exacerbating that. The last few centuries of the Roman Empire were presided over by some of the most corrupt and inept emperors in the history of Rome. One of these were Elagabalus, who ruled from 212 to 222 AD. In the 3rd century BC was also marked by a number of civil wars, cause of which varied. However, weak leadership was a major factor, right? And so this leads me to dealing with this part over here, the division of the empire. Now, I'm going to come back to the point at hand, right? I'm going to come back to this over here. But I want to read this in this article here, right? Which this woman here, what's her name again? Her name is, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she's saying that, as this reads here, Charlie Kirk shooting proves it's time for a national divorce between red and blue states. Greene sparked controversy in February of 23 when she wrote on X, "We need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. Everyone I talk to says this, from the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to the Democrats. Traitorous America, last policies we are done," Greene added. Meditate report Greene was quickly denounced at the time. Utah Governor Spencer Cox slammed Greene calls to split the country as evil. Former Representative Liz Cheney added that secession is unconstitutional. No member of Congress should advocate a succession. Marjorie, right? So that's all we're going to read from that point. But the point is just to be real basic here. She's calling for the division of these states. So now America is no longer going to be the United States, but rather the divided states, which has always been the case anyway. That's why she mentioned that everyone actually talks about this. Who is these everyone? Who are these which are among the everyone that talks about this? People that she rocks with, people that are insiders, man. And that's why this Charlie Kirk thing has been used, as well as it's been said, the saying, the slogan, never let a good cause go to waste, right? Something along those lines anyway. And so they've used the Charlie Kirk situation for a number of things to even somehow, some way bringing into freedom of speech, and yes, to divide the nation. All right. So when we're talking about the downfall of an empire, as well as ancient Rome suffered, we're seeing the resemblance of that empire. And if you want to know the future at times, you got to go back to the history. You know what I'm saying? You have to go back into the times of the past to find out what the hell awaits you in the future. Because as the scriptures, as I just read to you, as this reads, did I read this? I'll read it again just in case I didn't read it. Ecclesiastes 1:9, the thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So what I want to do is I want to go back to reading the scripture, and we're going to move forward to where I was going to go to. Yeah, so now let's look into reading some more of this. Yeah, so now let's read this. This is another part I wanted to read too, right? Tariffs are hitting trucking from multiple angles. Tariff policies enacted by the U.S. government in early 25, including reinstated and expanded duties on goods from countries like China, Mexico, and Canada, are having a broad ripple effect across the trucking industry. According to Burr, the most concerning aspect is how these tariffs drive up costs, not just on imported consumer goods, but also on intermediate materials used in domestic manufacturing. Roughly 50% of what we import are intermediate goods, says Burr. Even if final goods are manufactured in the U.S., rising prices on inputs mean those finished products are still getting more expensive. For trucking, that means rising costs across several freight categories, right? Because these things are going to be hard to transfer from one place to another because of these expenses. So if it's expensive to bring the import, then of course the American people have to pay more for these goods so that they can get their money's worth. All right. For trucking, that means rising costs across several freight categories. Consumer goods, higher prices, reduce demand, and slow freight volume. Construction material increased costs could dampen flatbed activity. Manufacturing inputs, domestic manufacturers may scale back output, reducing LTL shipments. I don't know too much about what that means. In short, the tariffs affect both the supply and the demand side of the freight economy, right? And yeah, that's a good point. That's another reason why you would higher the prices to reduce demand due to freight volumes. Because if you're unable to bring in a volume of goods versus how many people are buying the goods, and it's not balanced, then you're gonna have problems. Okay, but either and or, all this does is it just makes the living standards of the American people much more expensive. Which, again, this is all done by design. This is another way how you break the American economy. All right? Especially with these tariffs, man. So now what I want to do is I want to continue on where I was gonna go to if this part of the topic had left my mind completely. So anyway, let's get into this over here. Speaking of the division, which Marjorie Green is calling for, right? This is Isaiah 19 and we'll begin by reading verse 1. The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. And that's when the Lord is going to intervene. And this Egypt is referring to none other than America, which is also known as Babylon the Great, which is also known as that Basra, which is also known as that Assyria, all in one. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And so you're going to have a division among the people. And that's why you're going to have a thing such as a civil war. You're going to have people rising against one another due to their political differences and or rising up against their government. You're going to have seditions. So these are the things that are bound to be had in this society. That's coming down the pike. And it's just a matter of time. Okay. And this is another thing that Vocab Malone needs to be considering. He needs to leave us to it, man, because we're not going to stop talking about what we're talking about. The reason why we're here, speaking on the things that we're speaking about, whether it bothers him or not, because shit is about to go the fuck down. So before shit goes down, the prophets got to be there to let it be known so that people can repent. That is the sole purpose as to why we are out in the street teaching. Because we're telling you basically in a nutshell to watch out and get yourself prepared mentally and spiritually and to get yourself right with the Lord. Because some shit is about to go the fuck down out here. All right. So let's tie this in with Matthew 24 and verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famine and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. And speaking about pestilence, you just had a pestilence, which was man-made, as well as we know the one which they called for, this particular variant, which went out 5 years ago, and they told everybody to line the fuck up to go get the V. And since they've done that, they ain't been the same since. And the ones that have already dropped dead and the ones that haven't will probably go that route, depending on how many of them bad boys they done took. All right. And speaking about those that refused it, Tony Blair said 3 years ago that those that refused it are idiots. Well, I guess I'll have to be that idiot then, innit? All right. Because he's talking about how there's going to be another one coming. And it's going to be known as Omicron. And I'm going to keep my eyes on this Omicron, man, because he said it like he was sure. And as well as he's an insider. So you do got to check on things when insiders say things. Anyway, let's play this video here. And this is a man that should have been a long time ago thrown in jail. But of course, he ain't going to be thrown in jail. Because he's connected, man. He's well connected.
And you're eligible and you've got no health reason for not being vaccinated. You're not just irresponsible. I mean, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. I mean, that is, truthfully, you are. I mean, because this Omicron variant is so contagious. You know, if you're unvaccinated and you're in circulation, you're going to get it. And
so really what he's saying is when the next one comes around, this shit is going to consume your ass because you didn't take the couple of V's to protect yourself from this next one that's going to come down the pike. That's really what he wanted to say, but he had to be careful in saying that because then it's going to look quite obvious that, oh, well, he already knew about this, didn't he? That's just my guess anyway. Yeah, so I mean, listen, man. It's all going down like pots and pans, ain't it? This society, just like ancient Rome fell. This shit's going down the same route. Yeah, man. So I think I said what I had to say on this one over here. And Yahweh Shai did warn that pestilence was going to come, and we have to also include Psalms 91 too, because we're all of us all together that really believe in this truth. You know, we believe that every word and every vision will not fail. So we know all of this is going to come to pass, man, including that Psalms 91, and you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm gonna end this off right here and saying Shalom.